The Pakistan Army says it has shot down an Indian spying quadcopter after it violated Pakistan's airspace in the hot spring sector along the line of control. In a statement, the military's media wing said the drone intruded 850 meters into the Pakistan side of the line of control. This is the 9th Indian quadcopter shot down by the Pakistan Army this year. Tensions between India and Pakistan increased after New Delhi illegally annexed occupied Kashmir last year and imposed a curfew. The deaths of a father and son in police custody have sparked outrage across India, highlighting another example of brutality on minorities. Thousands on social media compare the incident to the death of African-American George Floyd in the United States. In a letter written to government officials, the family of the victim said they were brutally thrashed by the police. The letter demanded police take action against officers involved in the incident. Police in southern Tamil Nadu state said the victims were picked up for breaching coronavirus lockdown rules. Hundreds took to social media condemning custodial deaths in India. Now, the coronavirus pandemic that has now killed nearly 500,000 people globally, the number of infections from the new coronavirus worldwide has surpassed 10 million. More details in this report.
It has been nearly 7 months since the first coronavirus case was reported, but the world is still struggling to curb the outbreak. Be it South Asia, Europe, Africa or Americas, the crisis continues to loom large. North America, Latin America and Europe each account for around 25% of the global cases, while Asia and the Middle East have around 11% and 9% respectively. The US is the worst hit country in the world with more than 2.5 million cases and over 125,000 deaths. The first cases of the new coronavirus were confirmed in January in China before infections surged in Europe, then the United States and later Russia. The pandemic has now entered a new phase, with Brazil battling the outbreak of over 10,000 cases a day. China has also imposed a strict lockdown on some 500,000 people near Beijing to contain a new outbreak. In some countries with limited testing capabilities, case numbers reflect a small proportion of total infections. Roughly half of the reported infections are known to have recovered.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 200,000 as more than 4,000 tested positive in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says 83 new deaths were recorded, raising the toll to 4,118. The ministry said over 92,000 people have recovered from the virus, while there are still more than 105,000 active cases nationwide. Out of these, the province of Punjab has reported more than 78,000 cases, while Sindh has registered over 78,000 infections. The ministry says some 1.2 million tests have been conducted, with 25,013 in the last 24 hours. Moreover, India has recorded its highest surge in COVID-19 cases as nearly 20,000 people tested positive in the past 24 hours. The country has now become the world's fourth worst hit, with over 528,000 infections. The Health Ministry said 410 people died in the last 24 hours, taking the death toll to over 16,000. Capital city New Delhi remains the worst affected, with over 80,000 cases. Among states, Maharashtra is the worst hit with over 159,000 cases. Guwahati, the capital city, Assam state, has announced a complete lockdown for 14 days to curb the spread of the virus. US President Donald Trump has denied a media report saying the Taliban received payments from Russia for killing American soldiers. In a tweet, Trump said nobody briefed him or Vice President Mike Pence about the attacks on American troops in Afghanistan by the Russians. Trump said the New York Times report was rejected by both the Taliban and Russia, as he appeared to minimize the allegations. Earlier, the White House also said Trump was unaware of alleged Russian bounty offers to Afghan militants. The Russian Foreign Ministry said the published report was fabricated by the U.S. intelligence agencies. A Taliban spokesman said the group strongly rejects this allegation and is not indebted to the beneficence of any foreign country. Kabul says it has killed 14 Taliban fighters in an airstrike in the Sozmakala district of Afghanistan's Sare-Pul province. A spokesman for the provincial governor said local commanders of the Taliban were also killed while 15 others wounded in the raid. The Taliban have not commented on the claim yet. Afghanistan's Interior Ministry says 15 Taliban were wounded in multiple raids on Saghar district of Ghor province. The United States has condemned the killing of members of Afghanistan's Human Rights Commission, calling the attack anti-human. Washington's envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said those opposed to peace start fires they hope spread quickly and smolder indefinitely. Khalilzad said the U.S. supports the overwhelming demand of Afghans to overcome these odds and continue the struggle for peace. 2 employees of the Afghanistan Human Rights Commission were killed in an IED explosion in Kabul yesterday. The Taliban denied involvement in the incident and condemned the attack. The United States says it has intercepted 4 Russian reconnaissance aircraft near Alaska. This comes after Russia intercepted 3 U.S. spy planes over the Black Sea and escorted them away from its border. The North American Aerospace Defense Command said Russian Tupolev 142 jets came within 65 nautical miles south of Alaska's Aleutian Island chain. The command said the aircraft did not enter the U.S. or Canadian airspace but stayed in the surrounding international airspace for 8 hours. The U.S. and Canadian Joint Command said it was the 10th time this year that it has intercepted Russian military aircraft in the region. The U.S. says Beijing cannot be allowed to treat the South China Sea as its maritime empire. In a tweet, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the disputes should be resolved in line with international law. Pompeo said Washington supports the Association of Southeast Asian Nations stance regarding the conflicts in the key trade paths. Earlier, in a statement, the 36th ASEAN summit stressed the importance of safety and freedom of navigation in South China Sea. Beijing controls the majority of the islands in the territory, but Vietnam, Cambodia, the Philippines and others also claim their right. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, Yemen's government has called on the southern separatists to stop the bloodshed and abide by a power-sharing agreement. In his first public comment since April, President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi said the Riyadh Accord's implementation has faltered due to the recent rebellion in Socotra. He warned the Southern Transitional Council that resorting to arms and force for personal gains will not be accepted. Hadi has been living in Riyadh following the takeover by Sana'a and large parts of Yemen by the Houthis in 2014. On April 26, the STC declared self-rule and made a series of military gains, the latest this month when it seized the island of Socotra. Earlier this week, the Saudi-led coalition said it had deployed observers to monitor a ceasefire between the government troops and southern separatists. The two sides are due to hold further talks in Saudi Arabia to discuss the truce this week. Saudi Arabia says it has forced 3 Iranian boats to retreat from its waters after firing warning shots. State media quoted a border guard spokesman saying the Iranian vessels refused to stop after they entered Saudi waters despite repeated warnings. But the Iranian state media says the Saudi Coast Guard opened fire on fishermen who had strayed into the Saudi waters. An Iranian spokesperson said no one was hurt in the incident. A Turkish soldier has died in clashes with the fighters of Kurdistan Workers' Party in northern Iraq. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said the soldier was killed during clashes in the Operation Claw Tiger region without specifying where the fighting occurred. Ankara launched an air and ground offensive against the PKK militants in June. Turkey says the group is responsible for the death of more than 40,000 people during 3 decades of fighting. The latest offensive sparked protests from Iraq, which has summoned the Turkish envoy in Baghdad twice over the operation. Now, Libya's government of national accord says its forces will continue to cleanse the country of all Russian mercenaries and aggressors. In a tweet, the foreign ministry said the elements fighting for Haftar's forces pose a threat to the Libyan regional and international security. In a statement, an army spokesman said Russian mercenaries developed command center to take control of oil fields. He said the Libyan army is determined to save cities by making peace or war with using weapon power. Lebanon's foreign minister has summoned the U.S. ambassador to Beirut over her criticism of the Hezbollah group. The meeting between Foreign Minister Nassef Hiti and envoy Dorothy Shear is scheduled tomorrow. Local media reported that the minister will tell Shear that an ambassador has no right to interfere in the internal affairs of another country. Earlier, a Lebanese judge banned local media from interviewing the U.S. ambassador for a year. The ruling came after Shia said Hezbollah's behavior was preventing Lebanon from properly dealing with a deep economic crisis. But on Saturday, Lebanese officials apologized to Shia after the issue sparked a row over the freedom of speech in the country. Meanwhile, in Poland, people are voting in a presidential election that can place significant curbs on the power of their nationalist government. Opinion polls show the incumbent Andrzej Duda in the lead, but short of a majority needed to avoid a hard-to-win second round of vote on July 12th. Duda is an ally of the ruling Law and Justice Party, and if he loses, the opposition can force a big change in the Polish politics. Europe is watching the polls closely as Duda's allies have frequently clashed with the EU over their controversial reforms to the judiciary and media. The president's main rival, the centre-right mayor of Warsaw, Rafał, has promised to repair ties with Brussels. There are 9 other candidates in the race, including Szymon Hołownia, presenter of TV show I've Got Talent. In France, the second round of municipal elections has begun after a 3-month delay due to COVID-19 lockdown. Over 157,000 candidates are vying for mayor and councillor posts in some 5,000 municipalities. The first round controversially went ahead on March 15th, just as the coronavirus pandemic was gaining momentum. But the second phase, scheduled for March 22nd, was put off to June 28th after France went into lockdown. In Paris, the City Hall has distributed sanitary kits with alcohol gel, masks and wipes to 872 polling stations. Voters are required to wear masks, and floor markings will help them observe social distance. In Nigeria, at least 12 people have been killed in an armed attack in western Zamfara state. Witnesses say the armed gangs attacked the Unguwar Yabu village. Recently, the country's northwest has seen escalated clashes between the herder Fulani people and the neighboring sedentary tribes. Nearly 2,000 people have lost their lives in the region, while thousands have been displaced in ethnic violence. In Malawi, opposition alliance leader Lazarus Chakwera has won the presidential election rerun. The Electoral Commission said Chakwera secured the required majority with 58.5% of votes, beating Mutharika. Chakwera said his victory is a win for democracy and justice. His win sparked late-night celebrations on the streets of the capital, Lilongwe, which is the victor's stronghold. However, incumbent President Peter Mutharika alleged that the June 23rd election was marred by irregularities. Mutharika and his Democratic Progressive Party called on the Electoral Commission to annul the results and declare a third election. In the U.S., 2 people have been killed and 4 others wounded in a shooting at a Walmart distribution center in Red Bluff, California. Red Bluff police confirmed the officers on the scene shot the assailant and took him to a hospital. The sheriff's office said the shooter rammed his vehicle into the building and opened fire with a semi-automatic gun. Police said the 31-year-old had a history with the facility, which had about 200 workers inside at the time of the shooting. A hospital spokesperson said 4 wounded are in a fairly stable condition. Meanwhile, 1 person was killed and another injured in a shooting during a protest in U.S. city of Louisville, Kentucky. The Mexican authorities have carried out a series of raids as they investigated the attempted assassination of Mexico City's police chief. Investigators say they have arrested over a dozen people in relation to the attack on Friday. Investigators say they have also detained the alleged mastermind of the plot. Prosecutor's office said a group of assassins was hired 3 weeks prior to the attack and was divided into 4 different cells. Early on Friday, 28 hitmen injured the Capitol Police chief and killed his 2 bodyguards in an ambush. Now, Madrid City Hall lit up the skies with drones to pay tribute to COVID-19 victims and frontline workers who fought the virus in Spain. 40 programmed drones with multicolored LED lights shone over Madrid. They created different forms, including a heart and 2 people. They also created messages of hope and flags of other countries fighting the coronavirus pandemic. The location of the performance remained a secret until it took place to avoid crowds in a large gathering. Spain has been one of the worst hit countries from COVID-19, with more than 28,000 deaths and nearly 250,000 cases so far. Facebook says it will start labeling newsworthy content violating its policies. A company spokesperson said it will label all posts about voting with links to authoritative information, including those from politicians. This comes after the social media company faced criticism over its lack of action on inciting posts by the U.S. President Donald Trump. A growing ad boycott campaign, Stop Hate for Profit, has also been pushing the company to act on hate speech and misinformation. More than 90 companies, including Honda, Unilever and Verizon, have joined the boycott. In a social media post, Facebook chief executive Mark Zuckerberg said no one will be exempt from the new policy guidelines.
There's no newsworthy exemption to content that incites violence or suppresses voting. Even if a politician or government official says it, if we determine the content may lead to violence or deprive people of their right to vote, we're going to take that content down, no matter who says it. And similarly, there are no exceptions for politicians in any of the policies that I'm announcing here today.
Still more news to come after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, Sri Lanka has renewed calls for international monetary bodies to provide debt relief for developing countries. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says a debt moratorium for 2 years is needed to get back the country. In a meeting with UN and UNICEF representatives, Rajapaksa said Sri Lanka's vital economic sectors are at serious risk due to the pandemic. He said a debt relief plan will enable developing nations to quickly recover from the impact of COVID-19. This comes as Sri Lanka and India discuss holding the loan payments of $960 million that Colombo owes Delhi. Sri Lanka is scheduled to repay $2.9 million, billion of its total external debt this year. The coronavirus crisis has put several struggling airlines over the edge, while many global giants have seen record losses and a dependency on government bailout to keep afloat. The pandemic has virtually grounded global air traffic since March. More details in this report.
The pandemic has crippled air travel, leading to an unprecedented number of flight cancellations globally due to nationwide lockdowns. By April, international seat capacity had dropped by almost 80% from a year ago, and half the world's airplanes were grounded. International Air Transport Association Director General says he sees massive losses in revenue due to the global outbreak.
We forecast a loss of revenues for airlines that is accounting for $419 billion, which is 50% of our revenues, and cumulative loss for the industry around $84 billion. In 2021, situation should improve.
Flights have been limited and strict hygiene measures have been implemented to try and regain confidence in the industry. The US airlines cancelled hundreds of thousands of flights as passenger traffic fell by 95% between March and May. But airline officials have slammed the new regulations imposed by aviation industry and governments around the world.
If we start leaving seats in the economy inventory open or unsold because of social distancing, one has to accept you have to be consistent about this. It's no point just leaving the seat next to you empty, because the seat behind you, somebody sneezes or coughs, irrespective of the seat back meant to be deflecting it, it won't actually happen, as you know. A seat.
Some airlines have refined their services to try and minimize financial damage from the shortage of passengers. They have converted passenger planes to cargo planes in a bid to help them diversify. With a looming threat of second wave of coronavirus in many countries, it may take some time before a semblance of normality is restored.
Amid the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement, Hollywood celebrities highlighted the need to unite in order to fight COVID-19 and racial discrimination. The initiative Global Goal, Unite for Our Future, featured a summit, concert and video messages to raise funds. More about the star-studded event in this report.
When I was younger, so much younger than today.
The joint initiative by the advocacy group Global Citizen and the European Commission aims to raise funds to help lessen impact of the pandemic on vulnerable and marginalized communities.
When she was just a girl.
A historic summit raised $6.9 billion in pledges for governments, corporations, and philanthropists around the world. Hosted by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the 2 hours concert included performances from Miley Cyrus, Coldplay, Justin Bieber, Shakira, Usher, Jennifer Hudson, Christina Aguilera, and the Queens. Celebrities including actors Kerry Washington, Forrest Whitaker, Salma Hayek, and footballer David Beckham gave passionate speeches about racism and the need to unite against it.
One of the many things that COVID-19 has reminded us is that the entire world population shares problems that do not see boundaries. We have beat viruses and many other diseases in the past.
Sometimes sports is a getaway for many people, and I think not having live sports has been a big miss for a lot of people. So to get sports back on, even though there's not going to be fans in the stadium, that is a big moment for a lot of supporters. The 12th man gets you through a tough moment.
Actor Dwayne Johnson echoed sentiments of many others that the tragic case of George Floyd was a flashpoint that changed so much.
Those devastating 8 minutes and 46 seconds validated the horrendous systemic racism and civil injustice we know to be present in our current reality. Equality is a fundamental right that we cannot allow to be dictated by income or race.
Former supermodel Naomi Campbell, heartthrob Hugh Jackman, Billy Porter, Olivia Colman, Chris Rock, Ken Jeong, and others also participated in the event.
Look into your eyes and the sky's the limit. I'm helpless.
Now it's time for the weather update. with the weather update. We come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can always follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.